Are you ready to go, Sarah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the MGSE Self-Care series. So my name is Taylor. I'm the Student Enrichment Officer here at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands in which we all live and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So thank you all for coming along, and welcome back to those who joined us last week. If you missed last week's session, you can jump on to the MGSE YouTube channel to catch up on that session. This session will also be recorded and you'll be able to rewatch that as well. So in today's session, we'll be discussing daily self-care strategies for isolation. So very relevant. And our wonderful guest speaker is Sarah Lewis from the university's Counselling and Psychology Services. So just a little bit of housekeeping before I hand over to Sarah. If I could kindly ask everyone to mute their microphones throughout the presentation. If you have a question, just type it into the chat function and I'll monitor this. You can send it in a private message or to everyone. If we have time at the end of the session, I'll be able to share those questions with Sarah and we can try and get them answered. Our session should run for about 30 to 45 minutes today. And the session is designed to be quite informative, but also interactive. So we encourage everyone to participate, but participation is optional, and we'll prompt you when we get to sort of those interactive sections throughout the session. So I'll hand over to our guest speaker, Sarah. So Sarah is a clinical psychologist who's worked in community mental health for about 16 years, including the past 9 years working at the University of Melbourne's Counselling and Psychology Services, so CAPS for short. So Sarah enjoys working in a culturally diverse university community and helping students to improve their wellbeing and develop their full potential. So welcome, Sarah, and thank you. I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks very much, Taylor, for the introduction and for inviting CAPS to present on this topic. It's quite pertinent at this particular moment in time and presenting to MGSE students. So yeah, just hoping to spend the next little while talking through some strategies, some things that we can all be trying to help feel more connected to family, friends, community at this particular moment in time. Just a little bit about CAPS. I'll come back to some of what we run a little bit later in the presentation, but it is one of the health and wellbeing areas of the uni. We provide free confidential short-term counselling, as well as other psychological services like workshops, webinars, training, and online resources, such as this webinar today. So in terms of what I'm hoping to cover for you today, we're going to touch briefly on the importance of social connection for our mental health and well-being. I'm going to talk about some strategies you can use to stay connected, but here I'm also really keen for you to get involved and share your experiences and what have been helpful for you. I think given that it is a webinar on social connection, it's really great if we can be sharing some ideas during this time as well. And I'm really happy to take any questions as well. And also finally to talk a little bit about where you can seek further help if you feel that you need it. So maybe let's start with what the benefits of social connection are. And you know, some of this is not going to be all that new for you. When we're talking about social connection, we're really talking about the subjective experience of feeling close to and a sense of belonging with others. So there's a sense of meaningful, purposeful interaction with others. And we know both anecdotally from our own experience, as well as from lots of research that's been done in this space over many years, that social connection is a really vital part of our well-being, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, all the types of well-being. Social connection is a really important part of that. In terms of the work that we do at CAPS, we know that from speaking to many students, social contact, being able to get together, to talk, socialise, have fun, and be away from study sometimes is a way that we can diffuse from the stresses of study life, feel connected, get support, feel validated, and it's a really good antidote to loneliness. And of course, right now, as we all know, it's more difficult for us to do that in the same way as before. And so many of us are really missing this aspect of life right now. I think many of us by this point of the year had hoped we would be back to campus by now, and it's really started to hit us that we may be doing this for a little bit longer. There's some promising glimmers of hope at the end of the tunnel, I think, coming through right now, which is great. But it's taken a bit longer than we've anticipated to get back to whatever normal is going to be. And I think that's particularly true for postgrad students, where they're often part of a smaller cohort. They rely on one another for support throughout their course, you know, so it's even more sort of pertinent. And, you know, we know from numerous studies that social connection has significant impact on our health and well-being. A very big study that was done by Stanford showed that a lack of social connection is detrimental to health, even more so than some of those big factors such as, you know, obesity, smoking, high blood pressure. So strong social connection, on the other hand, can lead to increase in longevity. It strengthens our immune system, and it helps us recover from disease faster and may even lengthen our life, some of the research is showing. So people who feel more connected to others also have been shown to have lower levels of anxiety and depression. And studies also show that when we are more connected, we do have a bigger sense of self-esteem, greater empathy for others, and more trusting and cooperative. Okay, and so as a consequence, others are more open to trusting and cooperating with us. And in other words, social connectedness can generate a positive feedback loop of social, emotional, and physical well-being. So we know from this evidence that, especially at the moment, social connection is really important for all aspects of our well-being. So I might pause and ask for some of you to share your thoughts about who you feel connected to at the moment. So just launching a poll, and here we have who you feel connected to. So you can choose as many of these options as you'd like, and that could be friends, it could be housemates, work colleagues, people in your lectures. Choose as many options as you feel are relevant to you.
Might just give it a few more seconds.
I
think everyone's answered. There we go, there's the results there.
Excellent. And can everyone see that? I'm hoping that people can see that. Let us know if you can't. But it sounds like for most people, you know, up 70% of people obviously feel most connected to friends or family, whether that be here in Melbourne or in another country. So that's a large number of you. Housemates, partners, kids, people around you immediately, 70%. And then we have a bit of a smattering across the other groups. So 30% work colleagues, people in your lectures or tutorials, professional supports, uni staff, and a few less for other interest groups. So thank you for participating in that, and we will have a few opportunities to share some thoughts as we go along as well. So I'm just going to close that bit for now. Excellent. So in terms of increasing our sense of connection, this can be fostered either internally as well as externally. So we'll first examine some ways that we can foster an internal sense of connection with others, and then we'll look at some practical strategies for how we can stay in contact with people and make new connections where possible. So when we're talking about fostering internal social connection, these are really things that we can initiate or complete with the goal of connecting to others, and it can take many forms. So it could be acts of service, it could be making something for someone to gift them at some point in future or to send them. It can be ways to think about how you can reach out and offer support. So, things here might be, are there any people in your class or living close by who'd appreciate a check-in, a phone call, or some other form of service or kindness? Thinking about what are some simple ways that you can look after yourself, those you live with, and those you can realistically help. Obviously, we totally get that at the moment we're restricted in what we can do. We're restricted in where we can go. But nevertheless, it's about thinking creatively about what sort of kind, caring or supportive deeds you can do. So can you say some kind words to someone in distress, whether it's via phone call, via a text message? Could there be some sort of act of service in terms of helping someone out with a task or a chore, cooking a meal, offering support to someone who has young children? Can you comfort and soothe someone who's going through a tough time? To more sort of practical things like, reaching out to classmates and thinking about, can we get together to do this, to support each other, to study together online? So this is more about thinking for ourselves, what are some things we can do to reach out? In terms of a more external ways of connecting with others, here we're sort of thinking more about how can we make this a practical thing. What are some practical things that we can think about, or we can work on together to build our sense of social connection? So that might be, at this point, thinking about, can we make a standing appointment in the diary each week where we come together as a group or as a study cohort? We don't have the usual structures of uni lectures. Practicum placements have been delayed, and all those ad hoc kind of gatherings that we would have as part of being on university campus are not happening. So, even though by now we would have hoped that things would have returned to campus, we in fact at this point are needing to be a bit more intentional and deliberate in the scheduling of things and to build them into our daily routine. So I'm wondering, for others, what are some ways that you are already trying to do this? And, may not be super regular at the moment, but are there some things that you're already doing? And be super keen to hear from you in the chat. What are the things that you're practically already doing to connect with others, before I kind of offer some suggestions and thoughts about what some of those might look like?
We've had a few comments come through already.
Great. So why don't we let's pause a minute and share some of those.
Ros has said the barista is one of the people that she feels most connected with, which, to be fair, a lot of people have concurred. It's a great person to chat with and connect with. It's a stranger, but also someone who's interesting to just feel connection with, which is
absolutely. And that's probably part of a routine, right? You go along to the coffee shop every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same person at the same time, so that in some ways that's an incidental routine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And we've got lots of people suggesting walking with different friends.
Yes.
Someone joined a study group last semester, a family Zoom quiz. That sounds really fun, actually.
Yes.
Zoom pizza making with the grandkids.
Great. That's a wonderful one. Excellent.
Yeah, some great ones coming through.
Excellent. I'm also just reading a few. Yes, absolutely. Video calls to people. Excellent.
Yeah, I think for me as well, video calls has been something I never used to do. I was always a texter, but FaceTime and Zoom calls have seemed to really help in an isolating situation.
Absolutely, and there's a reason for that. It's about our facial recognition, our facial connectivity. There is something to be said for seeing a person's face and definitely being able to see their expression and their reaction, hopefully in real time. I mean, there's always technology issues, but in relatively real time. So if you do have access to that video component, that's always nice to do. Of course, audio and text are also perfectly acceptable too, if that's an easier way to get in contact. So it's really about being creative. thinking about neighbours as well. You know, they're relatively close to us, and, you know, as long as we get along with them and things are fairly smooth in that regard, you know, is that another opportunity to be able to, in a way that's safe, of course, you know, have contact with other people. And look, I absolutely take your point. Thank you for mentioning this about it's being hard to video call after Zoom fatigue, and that's real, and I totally resonate with that myself. And, you know, this is why I think, Taylor, you mentioned before, and someone else I think in the chat also mentioned this thing of, you know, having some walk and talk kind of opportunity. I myself did that this very morning, you know, just giving someone a buzz impromptu. They happened to be on a walk as well, and, you know, that was 20 minutes, half an hour of having some sort of social connection while I'm also exercising. So that's nice. Love the sharing of the herbs and the vegetables over the fence. That is super great. You know, thinking about what's practical, what can we do? So checking in with friends, checking in with family, you know, thinking about other people who may be a little more vulnerable at the moment, people who don't perhaps have access to the internet, or who can't easily use the internet to shop online and things like that. And spending time, you know, even, you know, often we have a lot of contact with students who are living in shared apartment but don't often have a lot to do with their housemates, and I wonder if at the moment is a time to see if those relationships can be built, given that we can't see many other people, although that hopefully will be changing soon. You know, another really important aspect is to think about other people in the community and ways that we can show kindness, and we know that this helps us with our own sense of purpose and value, and improving our own well-being when we're doing that as well. You know, here on this slide I've put a bunch of different symbols, many of which you're going to recognize, you know, and some people have been putting their responses in as well. You're thinking about, can we cook together? Can we watch something together? Can we listen to a podcast together? Can we do a joint Zoom yoga session together? A little later, we'll talk about some of the opportunities for doing some of these things. But certainly eating a meal, forming a study group, even if it's, you know, a lot of students have been coming in lately talking about the fact that they really miss the structure of university. They miss going into that familiar space at the Baillieu or other libraries or spaces on campus, where even if they weren't necessarily with the person doing the same assessment or assignment as them, just even being around a place where other people are studying is a really motivating thing. It helps keep people on track. And being at home, we can experience certainly a lot more procrastination and struggle with concentration. So, you know, is there a way we can try and replicate some of the ways that we would normally connect with people on campus? Could that look like, you know, concurrently studying with someone? Yeah, so it's about sort of thinking about what might work best. I really like the idea that someone had about joining a research or writing group, you know, things like creating a book club, and also using the aspects of technology that lend themselves to social connection. So, you know, one of my colleagues mentioned Bumble Friends. Someone else has kind of talked a little bit about some other platforms that they're using. So I'd be keen to hear from others if you're using stuff that other people might not know about. And doing things like organising trivia or getting a group together, you know, can also be a way of having a structured session. I know in my workplace that's one way of trying to get out the workspace, but still forming, you know, with a structured activity, still having some opportunity to connect. One other thing that came up recently was, you know, at this time of year, many people who are involved in clubs, societies, even just in the cohort of your course, are getting ready for end of semester parties or balls, or, you know, all these sorts of things that sort of mark the end of the academic year. And what about trying to find a way to replicate that in some way online? So, you know, there's a bunch of different things that we can certainly try in terms of strategies and things. But yeah, I'm wondering if there are any other thoughts about what other practical strategies people have been using to try and remain connected, particularly within your cohort at uni.
Anyone have any more suggestions, thoughts, or ideas?
I've just caught up on the chat, so there's been plenty.
Some great responses.
Yeah, excellent. That's great. I like the one, yeah, the positive psychology students, great. And doing PD together, absolutely. All right. I think we can't have a discussion about social connection without talking about ways that we need to look after ourselves during this time. So I want to touch briefly on this. You know, social isolation can increase feelings of low mood and anxiety, you know, and loneliness kind of comes into that as well, and feeling a bit disconnected from others can certainly be a bit of a risk factor in terms of depression and anxiety. You know, we know that exercise is a really well documented stress reducer. It boosts endorphins, and those are our feel-good chemicals, decreases stress hormones, and that's sort of cortisol, adrenaline rush, which many of us throughout the year have experienced, particularly this year with all the changes that have happened. Many of us have been running on adrenaline. And even during social isolation, obviously you can still safely be involved in exercise. So going for a run, getting out and having some sunshine every day. You know, I know people who have been cycling under their desks the whole day and we didn't even know. So that's a creative way. And just trying to maintain strength and muscle at the moment is really helpful. Meditation. So many of you, and I'll be keen to hear again in the chat if you're using particular apps or if you're practicing meditation, and that can be formal meditation in the form of a sitting meditation. It can also be incidental meditation or being in the moment and paying attention to that. So, you know, that's lots of good research is coming out to show that mindful meditation can really help to buffer against stresses and to maintain good mental health, particularly during a period such as the one that we're going through. Things like diet, and of course we know that different foods have been found to impact our mood in different ways. So trying to have as balanced a diet as possible, lots of fresh fruit and veggies, you know, all of those things, what we're putting in our body does have an impact on our mood as well. As well as being forgiving of ourselves when we do indulge too. So it's not about being rigid with these things. I think another really important one is connecting with nature. Thanks, Taylor. Did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just reading through some of the comments that people have talked about. Yoga with Adrienne. I've actually heard of this. And
I have done that too. Yeah,
she's fantastic. Great. Yeah, she's great. Deep sleep, Headspace, Insight Timer. So there's quite a few different varieties of meditation apps and platforms available. And yeah, it seems to be something that a lot of people are catching on to and helping.
Yeah. And even if that's for, you know, it's a great way to start a day, you know, just to bring your focus to where you're at, drop a bit of an anchor, see where you're at for the day, and just really try and center your attention. There's lots of benefits in terms of our focus and attention. And if you're finding that you've studied for a few hours and you're hitting that wall, as people say, and you need to take a break, you know, it's really good to use things like mindfulness, you know, connecting with nature, getting into the sunshine. You know, we know that doing things like getting outdoors, especially when it's green space, sunshine, even having some, you know, inside plants if we can improve mood. It slows down the activity in the prefrontal cortex. And, you know, if you can't get outside, listening to natural sounds, I think I've got Relax Sounds app on my phone, and there's like a bunch of different natural sounds that you can listen to, such as rain or birds or the sea or, you know, lots of different things. And just a little note, I won't spend too much on it, but I will let you know that we're running many different webinars. I'll talk a bit more about that later. One in particular on self-compassion, which I'm running next month. So really, knowing that meditation, compassion when practiced regularly can help to reduce some of those feelings of stress and anxiety. In fact, a 2019 study of mobile meditation apps found that even 10 minutes per day of meditation helped college students feel less depressed and more resilient. And the more that they used those strategies, the stronger the results were. So obviously, results need to be replicated and further research is needed. We're sort of at the start of researching the impact of apps. But that's a promising sign that some of those strategies can help us. In particular, you might be interested to try some things like loving kindness meditation, which is really a very nice one, and we do practice this as part of the webinar in a couple of weeks. It's found to increase positive feelings towards oneself and others and to decrease feelings of isolation. Excellent. Yeah, I totally endorse the one about animals and patting animals. I think that has a similar impact in terms of, it's like when you're holding a newborn baby, when it's not yours, obviously, and you're not sleep deprived, but it's got a really calming impact. And that's got to do with the way our brain responds to things like that. It slows down prefrontal organization center and really activates the parts of our brain that are more about slowing down the nervous system. Okay. So, I'm going to talk a little bit and summarize a little bit and talk about our service in the moment and the sorts of ways that we're trying to support students. But, just many of you have already shared and talked a little bit about the things that you're already doing, which is really wonderful to hear. And I hope that in sharing some of those ideas, people have gotten some ideas from each other as well. What are some tips from today that you might consider, or or if you've heard from another friend or another colleague, what are some things that might be helpful for you in this period of time going forward, and sharing that in the chat?
I love the one about negotiating cuddle times with the house cat. I think I'd love to do that.
That sounds great.
The yoga online, yep, definitely worth investigating.
Absolutely, and I'll put up the link to GSA in a moment, but they actually run yoga and Pilates online. So get on board with that. I think that's a great opportunity for grad students to be involved with things that are good for you, as well as an aspect of social connection and doing it as a group. Yeah. Thank you for all your comments. That's great. Oh, excellent. Someone has done that. So that's good. We can definitely recommend doing the GSA yoga and Pilates sessions. Sounds great. Excellent. So just to really summarize, and we're going to send in the summary of the slides, I will be sending Taylor these to distribute in terms of just some summary aspects of what we've talked about today. I think number one really does need to be managing your stress levels, focusing on what you can control right now, trying to maintain a balance and a routine as much as possible. We've talked about using technology to stay in touch, being able to connect with others facially if there's not a Zoom fatigue aspect, checking in with people and trying to make that part of a structured routine. Spending time with the people that are immediately around you, looking for ways to connect with the community abroad, in general. And then we've talked about some specific things like watching shows together, doing Zoom together, cooking and eating together, doing some online study sessions maybe concurrently, or joining or organising an online trivia night. So these are the UniMelb initiatives that are happening at the moment that I'm aware of, and that we're trying to promote, certainly in a counselling aspect too, because obviously we are seeing lots of people who are struggling with being alone for long periods of time. So the social connection is one that the uni is running. UMSU has just also put out a Let's Talk online group chat, and as I said, GSA, if you click on their website, they've got various. I think this week was Family Fun Week, so there was various opportunities for people you know, acknowledging that, you know, if you're also studying and you've got kids at home, that can be really tough. So they're really trying to connect with students with families as well, which I think is a great initiative. So Taylor, were there any other questions that popped up before I sort of jumped to talking a little bit about what we do at counselling and just giving people some information about that?
Not yet, but if anyone does have a question, feel free to turn your camera on and even click the reaction button and jump out, or type in your questions in the chat function. We've got about just over 10 minutes to go, so Sarah will be able to hopefully answer some questions. But
Great.
Please feel free to just turn on your camera or jump in the chat with your questions to Sarah, and we can read them out shortly.
Excellent. So I'm just going to run through some of the things that we are doing at the moment at CAPS. But yeah, please feel free, Taylor, to interrupt me with any questions that pop up if they do pop up. Thanks, everyone. So we are providing free, confidential and professional counselling to all students and staff. And at the moment, obviously, because of COVID, we're doing that via Zoom. We have first-time appointments, so initial consultations can be booked on the day or the next day. So we release those appointments sort of 24 hours in advance. So if you can't get in on a day that you know you're hopeful to, I would try again early the next day. And you can also either do that online, or you can contact the reception as well. We've still got our receptionists are still working from home. We offer short-term counselling, assessment, and where a problem is perhaps needing more specialist or ongoing support, we also have a referral network and can refer people to different practitioners in the community. One thing I also want to highlight is we've recently put in place the After Hours Mental Health Crisis Support Service. So this is for mental health support and advice outside of the typical counselling hours, which is usually 9 to 5. So they're 24/7, and you can contact them either via phone or via text. And again, I'll put these numbers in the summary slides, and you can also find them easily on our website. As I mentioned, we are running many workshops and webinars at the moment. Pretty much every week there is something on, and sometimes more than once a week. So you're very welcome. Obviously they're all free. You can register. Recordings are put up I think for a period of weeks afterwards. So if you've missed one, you can go back and watch the recording, and they're on a bunch of different topics that are sort of very relevant to our students, particularly at the moment. So we've done one on managing change and uncertainty, things like stress and how to relax, being effective. So these are more concerning mental health and well-being, and we've also got some around more aspects of learning and trying to help students enhance that, focus and attention, procrastination, you know, dealing with exam anxiety. So the details are there, but again, I'll send this information in summary, and yeah, you can jump onto our website and have a bit of a look. Yep, Taylor
has just put a message in the chat. So Marcia Ryan has created and nurtured an amazing Facebook community called High Quality Connections Community of Practice.
Great.
So if everyone wants to sort of have a look at that, it seems like a great social connection place there. Thanks, Roz.
Absolutely, that sounds wonderful. I'm noting it down. Thank you. We are also running anxiety management programs. So at various points we've run some for graduates, some for all the student cohort. So we have intake to these probably every sort of few months. We run a new program. So it's a bit more of a smaller group as opposed to the webinar. And it's a 3-week program. One of them is a 3-week program. That's the one on social anxiety. We also run Break Free from Anxiety for grad students. So that's a 4-week program. It's, as I said, it's a smaller supportive group environment, and it's really focusing on how do we better understand what causes or what contributes to our stress and anxiety, as well as having some very practical and working through some beneficial evidence-based exercises and skills that can help us with managing that. And a wonderful bit about that is that it is a smaller group, so there is opportunity to connect with others that have similar experiences. We are running mindfulness programs. So we talked about meditation earlier, and we are running the stress management for graduate researchers has now finished for this year, but every week we run 2 mindful moments. And they're half-hour sessions. You can just drop in every Wednesday and Friday. You'd be very welcome. Finally, for international students, we are involved in running many different workshops, particularly aware of the impact of being away from home for many of our students, and managing various expectations and just managing life away from home in general. So again, those are run through semester, and you would be very welcome to attend. This is our website, which I've mentioned, and there's a lot of information on there which has to do with, you know, enhancing our well-being. You know, we've also got a bunch of audio resources and guided meditations that you can access on there, and lots of information about enhancing our study and learning as well. Things like time management, procrastination, all of those sorts of things that are relevant to students. So that's me in a nutshell for today. I'm wondering if there are any final questions. Certainly, I think Taylor is going to be sending around a survey at some point, which would be super helpful for any feedback that you have, but I really appreciate the time today.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah. It's been really, on a personal level, it's been really helpful hearing you present, and also just getting involved with the chats and seeing and hearing everyone's different ways of strategies and ways of feeling connected. I think it's great to hear other people's habits and lifestyles, and it certainly provides inspiration for what else you can do as an individual, yeah, for your own well-being as well. So it's been great to enjoy listening to the chat and listening to you today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you to MGSC for inviting us, and yeah, I hope that everyone stays safe and, you know, enjoys some opportunity hopefully soon to connect with people more actively. You know, if you're living alone, you've got the social bubble aspect, and hopefully for others that will be possible in the next little while as well.